You're listening to WeDeepen Media.
This episode of Deepen with Christina is sponsored by WeDeepen. WeDeepen has curated the top social and transformational retreats, multi-day events for you to immerse yourself in practices designed to catalyze self-discovery and connection to interesting, open-minded people, couples, and communities, including the Eden Sanctuary Weekend for committed couples happening online monthly. Undone Rewilding, a 6-day women's sexual liberation retreat in the Mayan jungle of Tulum, Mexico. Relate Fest Miami, for people endlessly curious about relationships, produced by WeDeepen, the Esther Perel discussion group, and Leveled Up Love. Unleash Radical Play in Miami. Chakra Healing Jungle Retreat in Tulum, Mexico. You'll get to hear more about this one today. And the Island of Thailand Retreat with Peace Inside Live. You can use the promo code WeDeepen for special network pricing. Check out the calendar at WeDeepen.com to learn more and sign up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder of WeDeepen, WeDeepen.com. Go and check out the calendar, WeDeepen.com/calendar, and you'll see lots of interesting experiences. You know, one thing that I've seen as we're rolling into, we're in the first half of 2022 is there are the retreat options are popping. Like there's so many exciting retreats happening in 2022, and we're going to dive into that in this conversation, but I see it as a trend. It's really exciting. For the past couple years, many people have been isolated or kind of even going through a little bit of spiritual awakening. Like, is this really my existence? And as maybe, if you're listening to this podcast, pre-virus, WeDeepen was developing traction in the Los Angeles area. And most of the experiences were, 2 hours to 4 hours. And so people would drive around town and they would come to this experience that was happening in one day. And now a lot of the guides or facilitators of the experiences have had the space to develop these multi-day offerings, which are super immersive in whatever modality, but like those modalities not only are limited to just what could possibly happen in that few hour period of time, but now it's that it's inclusive of play, prayer, dance, deep bonding. Bonds build best over time. And so when you're in a group, and sometimes of these intimate experiences of 20 people, you just deepen further within your own self-awareness of you, out of the grind of your everyday existence. And then you get to know other people on a deeper level, friendships build for an entire lifetime. So I'm excited to have a conversation to share two just beautiful people with you. I'm here in Los Angeles. They are in Mexico. I'm Maya McClean and Michael Easterling are hosting a retreat together in Tulum. It's a Chakra Healing Jungle Retreat. So you're going to get to meet them today. I am actually getting to meet Michael for the first time. Maya, I have, I've known for probably, 3 or 4 years. And we met in Los Angeles through the deepening of experiences that were happening pre-virus. And Maya actually spoke and added talk nerdy to me and shared music. She is just a phenomenal singer, songwriter. One of my favorite Maya stories is her being a dancer for Prince. And so I would love to, I mean, that story is so good, Maya, that like of you visioning as a child, like I want to be I want to dance with Prince, and then like it just unfolded. So I'm definitely going to have you share that story. And Michael, it's so good to meet you in person. So I'm so excited to deepen with you two together, and then to share what you're working on and offering with everyone who's listening as well.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for having us, and I'm excited for what you're building and excited to be a part of it.
Yes, very much so. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So first, Maya, just, you have to share, because I always remember that story of, you're a twin, you and your twin sister are like captivating people. I don't think I've actually met your twin, but when I see pictures, I'm like, they are like splitting images of each other. And you were raised in Australia, and what's the print? Can you give us the Prince story?
So, we were born in Australia, and it was always our dream to actually dance with Michael Jackson. So we were training. We used to copy off his moves when we were little and dance in our bedrooms. And he was kind of like our inspiration, or kind of mentor, I guess, in a way. And we moved to Sydney because my mum said, look, if you want to dance with Michael Jackson, you're going to have to go where he is. We said, all right, let's move to Sydney. So she let us move out at 14, and we lived by ourselves and went to performing arts school and started advancing our skills as singers and dancers. And then once Michael Jackson came to Sydney, we actually met him, and we went to his hotel room, and he was playing with all these kids and had like candy, and we were all just enjoying ourselves playing video games. Anyway, long story short, our dream was to dance with him. So then we moved to the United States to have the opportunity to audition for him and train in America with a lot of the choreographers. And our third audition being in America was actually for Prince. And I believe in spirit, and and that you're supposed to be where you're meant to be, and sometimes where your ego or your past self thought you were meant to be doesn't always align. But what is for you and what's going to serve your greatest good is what ends up coming into alignment. So me and my sister auditioned for Prince, and we were singing at the time, and Prince always supported female singers. And so once he discovered we could sing, he hired us for a music video, and then discovered we were singers too. And he scrapped the whole music video. We didn't even do it. And then he ended up just taking us on the road on tour because he wanted to create. He was working with a girl called Tamar Davis at the time, beautiful singer from Houston. I think she used to be with Destiny's Child from the beginning. And she was packaging us together like she was Tina Turner, and me and my sister were the Ikettes singing and dancing like next to her kind of thing. So we just went on the road, and we had a guitar player that we were rehearsing with, and he got sick. And so Prince ended up standing in as the guitar player for these shows. And so we're kind of by way of kind of performing with him and touring, and that was like our training ground. So pretty amazing. So,
and this is all as a teenager?
This was, we were 25 when we got to America. So we were already adults at the time.
Okay. But still the journey of like, I guess from 14 to 25 there's a lot of disciplines that goes along with, I think I guess I know there's discipline that goes into singing, but I see a lot of dancers, specifically in classical dance, but of really rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal. Do you feel as though you're a very disciplined, structured person?
Yeah, I feel like I've got two sides to myself. My dad is really structured and organized, and then my mum was kind of like a free-flowing hippie. So I feel like I'm naturally kind of more in the survival mode like my dad. But then when I tap into spirit and I'm all in my free flow mode, I go through different modes. I feel myself moving into the free flow mode right now. So it depends on where I'm at and what I'm working on as well. And my mum's just like no structure, everything's free, love, kind of hippie from the 70s kind of thing. So a little bit of both, but with the dancing, I definitely learned a lot of structure, but within that, you're free flowing with when you're dancing too. So it's both. I think it's a nice balance. Mm-hmm.
So you were in the Los Angeles area before COVID hit, now in Mexico, to Tulum, or actually Playa del Carmen, and have settled in there. And, it's interesting in that story from childhood that what is a little bit different for the younger generation, as well as even us as grown-ups now. There's this it's hard to freely move like we once did, because of a lot of the restrictions that are happening. So these, multi-day immersive experiences seem even that much more important for that journey of self-discovery, to feel that movement, because when you're now in this quote unquote retreat container, there's a freedom of movement within that. There's, when you're not leaving your house as much as you once were before, I think for the most part in my existence, like the magic really happens when I got my front door, like into the world.
Right.
So now you're planning a retreat. It's a series of retreats. So the first one, we're here recording at the top of 2022, and there's a retreat coming up, in March, and then that will lead into, like, that's I believe a 8-day retreat, and that will lead into, they'll do one, and then the plan is to do 4 of these retreats a year. And you have partnered with Michael. The two of you have met and partnered on these retreats. How did you two meet? Where the connection? How'd the connection happen?
You want to take this,
Amanda? Michael? You want me to?
Yeah, I like you tell it. Let's hear it.
You want me to see it from my perspective?
Yeah.
Well, me and my partner, we discovered, actually it was my partner that introduced me to a really cool activity called whale shark diving.
Before, pause real quick.
Yeah.
Partner. I think sometimes that word confuse, like, what is part? Like, I could look at Michael as your partner, because you guys are producing a retreat together. Yeah. So when you say partner,
so my fiance,
great.
My fiance, now I'm dating a female, so I could say girlfriend, but that could sound like my best friend. So I use the word partner, but she's my fiance now, so I could use that word as well. Feels a bit stuffy, but so yeah, my fiance, she introduced me to this the whale shark diving activity, and she goes, "Do you want to go do this?" I said, "Yeah, they look so beautiful," because they these whale sharks, they come up to the surface and they love swimming in the warmer climate waters, and they swim up to the surface to I guess bring in the algae from the water into their systems, and they don't have any teeth, so they're these like big gummy kind of lips. It's like how this is what my grandpa used to do when he takes his teeth out. He had false teeth, and then does funny little mouth movements because he's got no teeth. That's what they remind me of, my grandpa. I said, yeah, I definitely want to go to do this to do this activity. And so we got on the boat, and then Michael's there and he's filming, and I always film. I'm a documenter at heart as well, so I'm just like, oh, this guy films more than me. So I was like seeing myself in him. I said, let me connect with him, and I loved his energy, and I could feel I felt like I could tell it was a yogi because of how straight his back was and his energy. And I'm like, do you do yoga? Like, I was checking in to see where we could connect. And that was kind of how I connected with him and how it started.
Funny. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, that was it was one of the things. I love the water. I mean, I didn't grow up. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and we grew up near a lake, but never really experienced water life like that. But the short of it is, just this one day, I decided it would be a good idea to go out into the middle of the sea and look for sharks, and then jump in the water and swim with them. It seemed like a cool thing to do. And at one point there was maybe 8 of us on the boat on that day. It was a small ship, maybe size of a minivan or something. It wasn't big by any means at all. And I think I was. Let me see. There were 3 couples: you and Amira, the young Italian couple, and then myself and one other single guy was there. Mm-hmm. And so we're just on the ride, and I just noticed same thing. I don't remember even honestly taking that many pictures. I do remember at one point we kind of looked at each other, and I just kind of felt a vibe, because you slept on the way up from Playa. I think you were pretty much asleep the whole way, so we really didn't interact with the band
in the morning.
Yeah. Right. We left out here early in the morning, and the sun was barely coming up at that point. So it's like an hour ride north to Cancun, where we left from. And I just remember, I remember just feeling you at one point in the ride. There'd been little conversation. And I ended up speaking with Amira probably more on that actual trip. And, we talked about food basically primarily. And at some point the conversation moved from the boat to inviting them over for dinner. I think I came by for dinner that next day. And we just kind of, I think I made everything that you don't like. I just cooked a dinner and
well, Michael,
a few courses, and
when I was getting now on WeDeepen we have the Chakra Healing Jungle Retreat page, and your Instagram is linked from that page, and so I got to explore, and I could see all of the food. I'm like, this man is definitely a foodie as well, so that makes sense. How did you? You're in Mexico from Cleveland, Ohio. What brought you to Mexico? Did you have a shakeup during COVID as well?
I mean, a shakeup. I wouldn't describe it like that. So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I had been living in the New York City metro area from 2008 until 2019. So I feel like I was coming more from Jersey than from Cleveland. Family took me back to Cleveland for a couple of years. I gave myself starting in August of 19, I went back for family reasons for a 2-year commitment, which would have actually ended this past August. My youngest son was with me. My parents are also there. And the short of it is, and so I had been doing food system work for nonprofit, basically everything from urban agriculture to advocacy, program development, teaching people how to grow and eat food, and also working as an organizer to bring around food producers, advocates, and educators to help create a more just and sustainable food system. And what that means is a lot of making phone calls and writing reports, basically. One of my clients I was helping to raise money for, this is all during COVID. So during COVID, I don't know if you recall, one of the first ways that people felt it when the shutdowns happened was the food insecurity all across the country. There were people when people stopped working, when the people's paychecks were getting cut, people's jobs were getting furloughed. Everybody still has to eat, and the food banks went just like out the hospitals to full capacity, and across the country in many different levels. I think a lot of the endemic hunger that lies below the surface came more to the surface. And I was doing a lot of proposal. And it's funny, I was running a personal chef business. I had started that in New Jersey in 2015. I'd been doing that pretty much full time as a way to help take the message about sustainable food into people's homes and into their tables, literally. And at the beginning of the pandemic in February, I had a full calendar booked through maybe July, August at that point. In about 2 weeks, that completely shut down to nothing. And I was, fortunately at home with my family. So I'm saying all that to say it was actually, I took that time as a blessing. It was good. And personally, thank goodness we had loss in the family and attributed to COVID, but we also had a lot of time together. And I was in the house pretty much on lockdown with my parents, an elder uncle, and one of my 3 sons. And it was nice, to be quite honest. And I had a really good time to reflect on what had happened, in life up to that point. And as far as me getting here, I had past clients who I had worked with to help raise money start calling me to help write proposals to tap into a lot of the relief programs and relief funding that was going on during the early months of COVID. One of my clients came down to Mexico on vacation, and we'd already been working remotely. So the fact that we were both moving around didn't faze me, but she went back to the Bronx in about January of last year. And she said, yeah, my office is still going to be closed till May. So I'm going back to Mexico for 4 months. And that's the first time it really just kind of hit. I never actually even heard of Playa del Carmen. And instead of having her pay me in cash, I had her put me up for a week. That week started March 3rd of 2021. My youngest son had just turned 18 the month before that. And that week turned into a month. I went back to Cleveland, got a couple things, and I've been here pretty much ever since.
And are you currently single?
Yes.
Cool. We like to consider all of love, all of the fullness of everybody. Cool. And I imagine, of being a foodie like you are, that the retreats that you two are producing is going to be a delight to everybody's taste buds, with sustainable, healthy food to also be immersed with. So, and the retreat, though, the focus is, from a content standpoint, is on the chakras. Mm-hmm. Why, as is that something that the two of you aligned on, is around the importance of the chakra system? How was that, incorporated? How has that been incorporated in your life? And why do you find the chakras to be an important thing to share? And I'll start with you, Maya. But Michael, I also want to hear your thoughts on this too.
So I've been doing a lot of research on the chakras, and also, working on my own chakras where I felt some disconnect. And once I started deep diving and listening to experts, I was like, this is a really nice way to focus on like the holistic view of self-healing. I'm all about, everything being holistic. Not everything's connected. There's not just one area that we could work on: mind, body, spirit. There's all these different elements that we can heal ourselves through. And I feel like the chakras are a nice way to kind of focus on all these different areas. So for me, I was working on my roots chakra and sacral chakra. So at the time, at the beginning of this conversation, I was really deep diving into my root chakra and my own scarcity growing up in Australia and not having with a single mom, not having a lot of money. I was really discovering where my insecurity was. And it wasn't so much, what I discovered wasn't so much that wasn't so much the insecurity just on finances, it was just more foundational insecurity. And that's what the root chakra represents, is the grounding of and the physical real world security of your experience in this physical body. And I was like, I've always been putting it on, I've just got financial scarcity or whatever, from on that point. But it was really just the lack of stability in the experience that I had growing up, because we moved around a lot, we traveled a lot as well. So that feeling of uncertainty has always been kind of seeping through in the background. I'm like, I need to expand this. I want to heal this and really clear this. So for me, that was a huge priority for me. And then also, throat chakra was also feeling blocked in the beginning, and I was literally feeling like stuck. And I ended up going to do some Temescal ceremonies, which I'd been done in the past when I first visited here. And that was opening up my throat chakra. Have you heard of the Temescal ceremonies?
No.
It's like it's a sweat, like the American Indian sweat lodge, but the indigenous people here in Mexico, that was one of their ceremonies that they created. So they do a lot of that down here. And it's where for hours, they heat up volcanic rock, which they call abuela, which means grandmother in Spanish. So it's the grandmother rock of Earth that they heat up in the fire for hours. And then once it's heated up, we're all in ceremony and we go into the Temescal. It's like a little kind of, I guess, stone igloo or concrete kind of igloo type of thing. And then everyone goes in and you pretty much kind of knee to knee, depending on the size of the actual structure of the Temescal. And then they bring in like the heat rocks and then start putting like purified water on top of it. Through the ceremony, and then there's a shaman that leads it and takes you through like the transition of your life, which is really impactful, so you can kind of reflect on your experience thus far. But it also is very purifying for the skin and releasing toxins out of the body. And for me, it was in that moment, and in the past I had some different awakenings from it, with letting go of control, because sometimes you feel like you can't breathe. And I was experiencing like I'm going to die if I stay in there. And I'm like, but I would need to overcome this experience because I was feeling like I'm confronting death. In a way, I used to be claustrophobic and I'd overcome that. I used to be scared of flying, and this was kind of a bit of that energy coming in. And so for me, it was a lot when I had first done the Temescal like 4 years ago. But I'm like, I need to go back and do this like 20 times. And my first experience of it was I could feel like, and I've experienced this energy before, but energy kind of coming out of my hands, like pins and needles in my hands, in my feet, in my head, through that experience. And I was just breathing. And when I felt like I was getting too scared, I couldn't breathe, I kind of laid down in the Temescal because you can get more air lower because the heat's rising. But by the end, sticking it out was amazing. And I came out like have the vision of like a fawn or like a baby horse being but rebirthed. It feels like a rebirth when you come out of the Temescal. It's an amazing experience. And then the throat chakra was the other opening that I've had that I was having recently earlier this year when I was feeling a blockage with my communication and speaking my truth, just kind of being indoors in COVID. You're not as expressive. I'm used to touring the world and, socializing all the time and connecting with people in that way. So I felt like over the time, I'm like, where's my throat? I can't feel it. It feels blocked. And then when I did the Temescal this year, I could feel that energy opening up really powerfully, and that was helping release the blockage in the throat chakra for me.
And that also in the retreat that you are hosting, people get the opportunity to go to have that experience, correct? Yeah. I think I saw that as I was
like, we have to bring it in, and there's a beautiful the artists and the shaman that we work with that I had been working with in that for myself. I'm like, we need to have them at the retreat. So I called them up, and one of the fire there's a guy. There's always someone that mans the fire because it's a real ceremony. So he's there taking care of the fire, making sure the fires and the rocks are getting to their hotness, and then he's the one that kind of delivers the stones into the Temescal within the ceremony and works hand in hand with the shaman. So he's a friend of mine. He's also a beautiful musician, and we've played together before in the past. I said, Taco, his name's Taco, which means, octopus in Japanese. He's had a beautiful healing journey himself in his life, and his like heart chakra energy is so beautiful. So he's partnering with the shaman, and some of the artists that are going to be a part of the Temescal ceremony in the retreat, as well as cacao ceremony. They do both back to back.
It's interesting. I'm thinking, I haven't had that experience, but I know it sounds sweat lodgy-ish. And I remember, years ago, you started hearing about sweat lodges. In the process of the message being sent or shared about sweat lodges, you also started to hear about, the people that are dying in sweat lodges. So there was, and it's or the challenges of the sweat lodges, and I, there's in this quote unquote spiritual community, and when I say spiritual community, I find that the spiritual community tends to include people who are seeking. They're seeking something deeper. Like there must be something more. Like, why am I here? And I have been in the room, like, I've done numerous ayahuasca ceremonies. I have done a Kambo or combo ceremony one time, and that is really challenging. And so, and I've heard from a spiritual principle before. This one comes out of Kabbalah, like the greater darkness that you've experienced, the greater opportunity for light. Mm-hmm. And so it's, and the stories the human stories that people share, some people have, there's an episode 20 or 21, with Chi on the podcast is, he was a man at 12 years old that his mother, in Vietnam, walked him down a long, dark alley at night and put him on a boat. And then he was stranded at sea for 18 days because she was sending him off to have a better life. And then it was invaded by pirates, and just a crazy story for, a 12-year-old to experience. But in that was really dark. And then his life has unfolded, and you look and you're like, wow, his existence is sort of magical. Some of us, specifically, I grew up in Maryland and in a nice suburban town, and I had friends and family. And it was, by all means I wasn't ushered out onto a boat and then, raided by pirates at that point. I was running around playing flashlight tag and swimming at the pool. And so these experiences, like, do you ever consider, like, are we recreating almost like the pain? Because the experience of life is like pain and pleasure. Like there are these both sides that are happening. So are we essentially, like, in that experience of going into this type of ceremony, is it because, like, once you feel the pain, we're going to put you through the pain. So when you come out of the pain, you're going to feel great because you just went through, like, this traumatic, painful
right.
experience.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can relate to that. And I just think it's a choice of whatever you want your journey to be and whatever you want it to look like. I mean, whenever I experience awakenings or dark nights of the soul, like, I can feel the difference and I can physically see the manifestation in my life afterwards. Because there's new openings and new expansion once you've gone through the healing, and I call it going into cocoon phase, and then you open up as a butterfly, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. Well, now there's something else I want to manifest. We're constantly seeking, we're constantly always expanding, like the universe. We are the universe. So I believe that there's a constant, need for an expansion, and there's something. What else? There's something next. Now I go in moments of not needing to, but it depends on where my focus is. And some people go into, we don't need anything, let's not seek, we can just be still and sit in meditation. I agree with that too. I feel like it's just choice. I choose to I love the balance of real world and metaphysical, so I dive in and out of both, and it just feels like this nice flow. And sometimes I'm in my masculine, sometimes in my feminine, sometimes I'm in my structure, sometimes in my free flow, and like, this free flow isn't working right now because there's all this stuff I want to produce, and then I go into production mode. So for me, it's like a dance. And then I'm like, I'm feeling a bit too structured, I need to free it up. And then I'll go into free flow mode where I'm not planning and not and limiting my calendar, and everything's just free flowing, and I'm feeling and operating from an intuitive standpoint. So I think it's just all choice. Like when I first did my first ayahuasca ceremony, what I kept hearing was you're the universe experience in itself. You're the universe experience itself in this perspective. You're the universe experience itself in that perspective. And it's hard to say. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but that's what I felt and what I got from the ceremony. Oh, I'm just the universe having experiences. I'm like, oh, okay, that experience was nice. Let me try something else. I'm like, oh, I haven't experienced, confronting what it feels like when I can't breathe in a sweat lodge. Let me try it out. And then I was like, oh, I love that. I could feel my ego dying and my control, wanting to control certain things in my life. And it ended up releasing it. And I had awakening experiences of just being present, looking up at the stars afterwards. And, we're just the universe experience and it's experiencing itself.
Michael, as we were talking, I could see you shaking your head, especially when I brought up the dark and the light. And I want to hear how you kind of discovered the chakras. And I also want to preference it with this experience that I had years ago. And it was, as I was putting together this retreat, I think I had a noticing of it, but as we entered into, as we're recording this audio in Zoom, so I'm getting to see your face. And in 2016, I had joined a best friend of mine, Sunyu, for a healing experience that she was guiding. And this was in New York City. And Sunyu is a Uganda bone healer. And so I had brought a friend with me to that event, Timothy. And at the end of it, she looked at me and she said, "Where'd you get him?" And I was like, what do you mean? Where'd I get him? She said, "Where'd you get him?" Like, because Timothy was a Black man. And I was like, well, he's a friend. I've been friends with him for a long time. And she said to me, "Bring more of them." And she was saying, and what, when we dove deep into it, she said, Black men aren't necessarily jumping into healing experiences. They're not, she wasn't seeing them often in her facilitation. And I always just remember, I really took that, like, her words and have, I did grow up in a town where it was like mixed. It was like, there was equal amount of Black and whites.
Where in Maryland, if you don't mind?
I grew up in PG County, Bowie.
Okay, sure.
So, and then my bonus mother is a Black woman. So it just was like, and also living in New York City, I lived in New York City for, 12 years. And then I made my way out to Los Angeles. And when my way out to Los Angeles, I remember there's times I'd walk into like these parties and I'm like, why is there a bunch of white people in this room? Like, it was kind of a little bit uncomfortable. I'm like, where's the diversity? What's happening here? So I've just had that planted inside of me. So it was, I guess, is that something that, you're a Black man yourself. Is that something that you're conscious about? Do you have thoughts around this?
I got thoughts about lots of things. First, I'm going to put this in the context of chakras. There's something you asked me the last question before that was, am I single? I'm not available. I'm definitely not available. I'm definitely in a relationship right now. I guess we haven't defined it, but I just don't want to mislead that, we haven't put the word on it, but I'm definitely not, I do not consider myself available, if that maybe clarifies. And the reason I say that from a chakra perspective is someone who I met relatively recently, and literally in the first, within hours of meeting, I literally felt my heart chakra burst open in a way that, that I don't know that I have ever felt. And if I had, it's been a long time. And, so we're in the process of exploring, what that is and where that goes and, how we move with that energy. And it's certainly, I would say, like I said, that's the way I felt. I literally felt that chakra open up. And, so backlog is where I am in life right now. Yeah, I do come from an environment where I've been surrounded by Black men doing healing work I wouldn't say my whole entire life, but pretty much my whole adult life. So I've been initiated in my tradition. We can talk more about that for about 26 years. This will be the 27th year that I've been initiated, and I was studying a few years before that. And all of my mentors, all of my instructors and leaders and coaches and brothers have been basically all Black men. There have been some, others as well. And then, so just for context, I mean, I grew up in a very suburban, I guess, middle class environment. I lived in an area now which is basically a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood. I was raised in Catholic schools my whole life, belonged to a Methodist church in the inner city, and my best friend is Muslim. So, I mean, I've been surrounded by spiritual diversity and cultural diversity for pretty much my whole life. And in that have, I guess the thing about the light and the dark, that's how we focusing on that. The one thing I've seen, I've been in mosque, I've been in synagogue, I've been in church, I've been out in the nature and worked with various indigenous people. God feels the same to me, the creator, however we define in conversation, we've had basically look at it. It's like you can look around, however we interpret the world or experience the world, and either agree that it's all random or there is some intelligent order of it. However we experience that or define that or talk about that. And for me, it's never felt like it was random. And that intelligence is what I call God or spirit, or however, I'm comfortable in talking about the creator in many different contexts. And that struggle that I heard implicit in what both of you're saying, we're all saying, is that, from my perspective, we are spiritual beings. The core struggle, no matter what we go through in our lives, being born into human form, we're spiritual beings born into this form. And however we experience life through that form, there's always that core of the spirit that is there for us, and that essentially is us. And that through ritual, through ceremony, through religion, through culture, through teaching, through learning, through so many different ways, we have ways to access that spirit that's in us. And then to, if we could use our bodies, I guess, as an antenna or a receiver and a transmitter, but that core, that signal, that energy, that part that you can't see, that carries the sound, that carries the video, that carries the audio, that spirit, that's what connects us and binds us. And I've been very fortunate to have many Black men, many men, many women help me understand that better and to explore that in many different ways. And the chakras is one of a few core ways I've been able to experience that. But the fundamental battle I think that we all face is being spirits in a material world, as the police once sang about it. Yeah.
And how, when you said this word initiation, like 26 years ago, I was initiated.
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, so for example, everyone who goes to church is not a minister or a priest, or a nun for that matter. And the deacons, the nuns, the priests, and to use that framework, are people who've made a commitment to working with spirit as in service in a more intentional way. So, I in that framework would be considered a priest, or I can confer the ashe, the energy that was conferred into me. I can do ceremonies like marriage and funerals, things of that sort, like licensed by the state. So a minister, if you will. For me personally, it has been more of an internal and spiritual. Internal and familial work. This is really interesting for me. And May and I have talked about this. That for me to be coming into the world as a spiritual practitioner primarily is part of my own personal transition and growth, and where and why I'm here right now doing this kind of work right now. And so yes. So to answer your question, initiate. I've gone through ceremonies. It's interesting that the initiation process in my tradition, the Ifa tradition, is also a 7-day ceremony. It's a rebirth. You go into the womb, so to speak, just like Temazcal or Sweat Lodge. All those things are recreating a womb, and we go into the womb as we are, and we come out, ideally more of ourselves, and we shed off that part that's not ourselves, the sweat, the impurities, the physical. It's a way to separate ourselves, or at least create a little bit of distance in our consciousness from our physical self to our core spiritual self. So when I say initiation, we can talk more about the specifics of that process, but in every almost every tradition I can think of has some way of training and educating and taking people who are basically committing their life to this way of service, being initiated, being ordained. It's not quite being baptized, because one can be baptized and commit their faith, but still not necessarily be in a position, still not choose the position to serve in a more communal way. So being initiated does, for example, give me the responsibility more than anything else to be able to work with people to help along their spiritual path in this tradition. Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I imagine of contemplation. Like contemplation is probably, I imagine, is part of your practice. And in contemplation, like if somebody was listening to this and they hear that, there's the idea that everything is random, and then there's the idea that there's this intelligence out there, and the unfolding of the intelligence is actually, the quote unquote bad stuff, if you want to say good and bad, but like the dark stuff or the challenging aspects of life. There's the intelligence within those challenging, like that's how I kind of make sense of the world around. Mm-hmm. However, somebody listening and they're like, okay, well, sure, he grew up in a middle class world and such, but like, how do you, with all like looking around, like the hunger and the like all these worldly like big war, the problems, how do you also justify if there's an intelligence, like why is that happening?
I by no means I am not in a place to understand the mind or the will of the Creator, of all of us, and so I really don't even look at it that way. But I do believe that there is purpose, there is order, whether I understand or comprehend it fully or not. I do believe that it is that, and to the degree that I can comprehend and understand it, I believe that as far as a purpose. I think that we all have the capacity to love, and when it really, and I know it sounds really simple, and people, it's always a thing. I remember the first time I saw homelessness, I just cried. I was little. It still, gets me that that exists in the world, and I have come into my, as I continue to grow as an adult, I understand that. That it does exist in the world, and pain and suffering and, war and peace all do exist. And the one thing, one of the beautiful concepts I love about the Ifa tradition, which is also, again, there's a whole historical way to talk about this, because people may have heard of Santeria or Candomblé or Vodun or Voodoo or different things like that. Here, for example, Maya. These are all basically pre-colonial spiritual traditions that exist in the world for thousands of years, and they're all much more alike. My first conversation with Taco, he's coming from a Maya, from the Maya tradition. I'm coming from this African tradition, but the way that we talk about not only spirit, but our role as humans, not about Black man, white woman, Black Mexican man, or anything like that, but just as where do human beings fit into the order of things? We see that far more alike than different. And we don't have a concept of absolute good or absolute evil. There's no absolute light or absolute dark. Similar to the way you see in the I Ching symbol, the white with the dark circle, and vice versa, the black with the dark, all combined as one. I mean, for us, that's the nature of our existence, that there's always this constant interplay of energy and matter. Even Einstein says energy is matter, with the constant, the speed of light. But the point that there is no separation between our energetic beings and our material beings, the difference really being consciousness. We're not all, for various reasons, at the same place of consciousness at any point. And when I'm acting in an unconscious place, I might see you as different from me somehow. And depending on where my ego is or how my ego is, either individually or collectively, I could see or perceive you as a threat or someone that is either trying to take from me or harm me, again, individually or collectively. And I think that this lack of consciousness is the basis for that, the manifestation of the suffering that we see in the world. Not that it's I don't think that it makes God be any less God, or it makes the creator be any less the creator. It gives us opportunity to grow and evolve. And it's, at the end of the day, I do believe that whether we understand our purpose or not, that we're serving a purpose by being here. And as a grower, as someone who grows food, I know we all end up as fertilizer one way or another. And I do believe that is the case physically and spiritually. And that this idea of being able to end suffering or to end, war, to end famine are ways to really, another way, for me, day to day, I look at it as how can I understand my place in the universe as the universe and as an active agent in it, and to create the kind of alternatives and create the spaces that I believe will elevate us and basically model that and manifest that as much as possible. And that's why in connecting with someone like Maya, we really there's, looking back, there's a lot that we haven't. We're really, I think, and Maya, please chime in on this. We came together energetically, and we're moving energetically. And even before I knew her mission statement or her, the stuff on paper that people maybe form businesses around, I really feel like I saw her. I saw another spirit entity, out here in the world that we connected on. And I believe, and that's been my experience throughout life, that, we all have these shells that we're in, Black man, white woman, mixed person, transgender, they, whomever. But I've not met any person who does not have the capacity to love, who doesn't have the capacity to experience joy and pain and suffering. And in that, I feel that all these things that you talk about, this lack, this conflict, are ways that we can find commonality and unity. And hopefully without killing each other all, but sometimes that is the path. I mean, that it does take as well.
I just in having this conversation, I think one of the draws to joining a retreat that you two are collaborating on and facilitating is this opportunity to deep dive in these spiritual concepts and thoughts. Like there's something so nourishing about philosophizing on life and our existence together. Michael, before I, by the way, is it Maya or Maya?
Maya.
Oh, that's, thank you. I just picked up on that. Michael, you mentioned the the experience that you had with meeting somebody now or recently, that your heart chakra, you felt your heart chakra like open up. I was having a conversation with girlfriends last night. There's actually a bunch of us girls. We promote Tantra speed date as well. And there's a Tantra speed date happening in Los Angeles. It happens monthly, but a group of us girls are all going together to Tantra speed date. And so we're talking a lot about dating last night. And I had mentioned that I was connecting with someone, but I was like, oh, he might be boring. I'm trying to figure out if he's boring. And the friend had pointed out, because she had been working with a coach on her love life, and she had said that actually that's really good to feel like if a boring man is like generally a man who is has a secure attachment style. And so they can appear to be boring because there's not like this chaotic fire, butterflies, everything, happening. So in that, then the kind of that it's not activating necessarily the nervous system, which some of us have learned, like kind of experience love came with like, in our educational curriculum, we all have the capacity to love. There's so much, like love is a practice. There's so much around it. Like love includes boundaries. Love includes, caring for the self. Love includes saying no. So in that experience, if someone says like, oh my God, like, yeah, like I felt such a draw to this person. My heart chakra was like open up. I had all these butterflies. And there's also like, how do you understand whether it's activating you in like the positive, healthy way, or it's activating you in a way that's actually triggering the remembrance of kind of like the unhealthy type of agitation and love?
It's really interesting. I'm not even really surprised that question comes up, but because that's actually one of the things I'm boring in a relationship. I'm super boring. I mean, I'm not, because I'm not seeking. I'm not seeking anything. I wasn't looking for anything at all. And, even reaching out to this person, there was no, it was an energetic connection. It was just really something that, I saw her energetically. I had no idea about, age or what her background was or anything. So I kind of responded to what I was picking up. And then I'm not even going to say by chance or by luck, because I don't really believe in it that way. We were brought together at the right time. And, it wasn't, lust or, I guess I think infatuation is a part of a relationship, and it can manifest either healthily or not based on our experience. But, and I guess one of the things is to be able to identify where we are in the phases of love or attraction or infatuation, or, the different kinds of love. And again, after, I was married a long time, we got three kids, more than 20 years, before we, went our separate ways, and we continue to co-parent and have a very healthy relationship. Even though it doesn't look like it had looked at the previous 25 years before that. I've learned a lot and had, and I didn't know it all 20 years ago, trust me. And so I've kind of gone through the hard knocks of that. So to your point, how do I know the difference? It comes through having done the work with that. And it's not something that happens automatically by any stretch. And it's not always easy. It's not always cute. But now at this point, to be able to engage with someone without wanting anything from them, but to only want something for them, that to me is how I define it. And that doesn't mean just because I'm in that place that the person who I feel that way for doesn't mean that he or she is in that place either. And meaning that a lot of times we get addicted to trauma or addicted to things that feel good or that we get used to, whether it's good for us. And I think that a lot of I just kind of see out here in the world. When I got here to Playa, I could tell right away there's a lot more single women out here than there are single guys. And, me 10 years ago, me 15 years ago, I'm sure would have a very, very different experience, probably not nearly as healthy of an experience as I'm having right now, because I wasn't in the place to necessarily, I probably would have engaged more in the carnal than I would in the spiritual. And, that takes, I think, time, intention, cultivation, training, and a will to want something more out of relationship than just something that feels good or feels fun, because I'm more clear in what I want in life and out of life right now. And I feel like I'm only going to attract and only tolerate that into my life. And I'm only, going to be with someone, even if we're not at the same place, we have to want the same thing and be willing to work and sacrifice for the same thing. And I think in any relationship at any level, even if it is just going to be casual, I think being clear, being able to communicate, and being clear on intentions is fundamental to that experience, whatever we want it to be or want to experience. I hope that.
Yeah, I just really what is actually I wrote down is this is gonna just stick with me and like a remembrance of you, like a quote that you said that really resonates. It's about not wanting something from them, wanting something for them. And that is just like so just beautiful to remember and to consider when you are relating to another human being, whether that's just for a moment in time or, and granted, there's always going to be like, a business love. Each thing has, there's nuance to it, but, even in business, you can still want something for them and not want something from them, because the alignment, when it aligns both ways, and that's the two people actually are they're getting both, they're receiving and also giving at the same time. So I love that. I know we're nearly about reached our time limit here, but as being founder, CEO of WeDeepen, I often what my job is. I'm innately like a salesperson. And I know that word sales gets like kind of has such a bad rap around it. But I did, I sold the world on online food ordering in like 2004. And then I went and worked in pharmaceuticals as a pharmaceutical sales rep for a few years. And then I went and sold, outdoor advertising and sold mobile billboards. And then I went and sold event production. And every time, like I would be in these companies, and I would, I'd work for them for about 2 years. This is in my 20s in New York City. And then I was just like, why am I selling this? Like, how is this really helping the world? I don't think the world really needs to be on Ambien CR. I think they actually just need better quality sleep and maybe to work less and to have, a playful existence. And so it excites me in having this conversation with you, not only but like I'm excited to go and present. I like the word present over sell, but present this opportunity to have this retreat experience with the two of you. Because I'm confident that'll be life-changing. Like I want to go and just, we've been recording this podcast for an hour. I said, like, usually guys, let's try to record for 50 minutes. But like, I want to sit into a room and spend like an immersive 8 days with the two of you and dive deep into these spiritual concepts. And that's oftentimes, I think like, because, I'm recently 40 and I have been like in this quest for quite some time. So I found the people that I get to have these conversations with. But when I leave my environment and I go back to Maryland or go back to those places, I don't get to necessarily dive deep in these what's the word I'm looking for? The
philosophical, but
yes.
hopefully it can be philosophical as well.
Yeah, both. Yes, that's true. That's true. So despite that, and then the experience that you two are putting together, I imagine not only the great food and then the musical element. I imagine, Maya, you'll be sharing music as well.
Yes, for sure.
Have you heard her sing before?
I have. It's like so just magical, and Maya, I think you did perform at that Talk Nerdy to Me, and also I believe you might have even done dating and meditating before too.
I don't know if I did, but I did attend in dating and meditating.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I played. I don't think so. Yeah.
So I'd love to wrap with both of you sharing, like, what excites you most about, March 13th is the day the retreat starts. Like, what is exciting you most about this retreat experience? And Maya, I'll ask you first.
I mean, when I have conversations with the guests that are coming, and they're sharing what they're dealing with in their lives and what they want to overcome and what they bring into the retreat, that excites me the most. When I'm in their worlds and I'm helping curate their transformation and helping them release blockages that are limiting them from being all that they are in their expression on this planet. Just the idea of being in that incubation with them and helping them, connect to who they truly are and what they're wanting is the thing that excites me the most. It's the most meaningful to me. I'm in the future and the imagination of us all together, just being vulnerable, connecting with each other and opening up and helping them unlock and pull, more of themselves out. That's what excites me the most.
And so I can tell with the emotional response to that question, and I could almost feel you feeling some specific people that have said yes to coming to the retreat. Can you give like an overarching, like, what are, like, not to get particular in what these people are experiencing themselves, but like, what is the general feeling? What are these blockages around?
Focus on individuals now. I definitely feel like there's a lack of connection in community, and some of the guests that I'm inviting, I've worked with in the past. Some are friends, some are other connections, but a lot of them have a similar just disconnect from themselves when it comes to community. We can do the work internally by ourselves, and I'm a spiritual life coach, so I help pull people out to become their authentic selves and live in alignment with who they haven't even discovered themselves to be yet. And that's one-on-one. But that's my intention with the retreats and why it's always been calling to me, and it's been a manifestation for me for a while. So it's really important to me. And I can feel the disconnect from humanity. And I think us being able to be vulnerable and be our authentic selves in groups and community is the most powerful thing. That's where you're free. You can be free. You can do it on your own, but we are community. Our environment is each other. And, in the incubation of that, of the retreat space, no matter whose retreat it is, you form these lifelong connections as you're expanding yourself in community. And I've worked in community all my, for years myself on my own processes. And I love working in community. It's freedom. It's expansion into more of who we are. And then people get to witness your journey, and people are working one-on-one or in different aspects. But once you get examples of other people transforming in new ways, you get so inspired. And I think that's a main overview of what some of the guests that are coming are definitely in need of, especially since COVID, is that human connection. And then being in nature. Nature is the winner. It's our connection to ourselves. It's our earthing. It's our grounding. It releases all the blockages of society and structure, and things have to be a certain way, or you're not accepted, or you're black, white, trans, rich, poor. Being in nature when you have limited. That's why we wanted to do it in this space, because it's not all flashy and, sitting in Tulum on the beach looking all rich and expensive, which can take away from the earthy grounding. And that's why I'm bringing in the facilitators that are from this region because they're connected to the earth. They're natural. They're not trying to be some flashy, person online. They're actually doing the work. They're in the earth. They're in the ground. They're connecting with each other. They're of this land. They're of this language. And it's going to be a beautiful, congregation of that for the guests.
I want to reflect back to you, Maya, is in this whole process of working with you to get the retreat up on WeDeepen.com. It's your passion is just so apparent. And I can see that mix of discipline and flow. That's why I asked about the of you being disciplined. And I think that the discipline is being fueled by the passion. There's so much care into it. And I also, I just want to point out of like a lot of, like, if you think of Mexico, specifically Tulum, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, they have been, the economy has, is supported by tourism. A lot of it is supported by tourism. And generally that tourism has been built around that system of like, okay, we'll make you food, we'll bring it to you, we'll serve it, but it's not been developed in the way that, that really catalyzes or takes into account the true gifts of the people who are indigenous to that land. And so I see this, retreat as being, a financial commitment of, nearly $4,000. But in that commitment of the $4,000, you are, and it's what I heard from your just share is that you're actually allowing the people to serve in the best way that they can serve. You're supporting their economy to enact their gifts that they have to share with us as human beings. So I just want to note how beautiful that is to see that you two are doing with this retreat as well.
Yeah, and it's a lot because I had a bunch of people reaching out to want to facilitate that aren't from here, that aren't locals. And I was consciously curating, like there's photographers and videographers that are calling, hey, do you want me to, I would love to come in here. And I had options to bring in for co-facilitators, and I chose Maddie Posser, who's a beautiful tantra healer, and she's leading the yoga and breath work. She's from here. This is her people. This is her place. I deliberately chose not to pick certain people. There's photographers that want to come in and be a part of it and contribute, and there's people that are from this land that I'm choosing to bring in first, even if it might not be financially beneficial because they may not be able to bring Americans or have that flow of energy. But like that's also the consideration. I intentionally wanted to work with Michael because there needs to be more healing in the African American community and a cross blending of all cultures. So I'm open. Like I love it. I love it. Black, white, Cuban, old, young, I don't care what it looks like. And I'm consciously aware of wanting to have that mass healing from all those levels, whether it's economically, locally, different cultures, different ages. So, it's very important to me to make sure that there's a mix going on. And everyone gets seen and everything's supported. Some people say you need to get a niche and niche yourself into something, but it's so hard to do. I can't. It's hard to niche when I can see everyone as equals and everything as winning.
Well, I see you have a niche. I mean, a chakra healing retreat is a niche. That's your focus on the chakras. Yeah. Hey, Michael, in 1 minute, I would love to hear what excites you most about this retreat.
The opportunity to become more of who I am and who I'm meant to be, and to work with other people to do that. And we're doing this work. Maya and I, we're going through it right now. We're transforming ourselves to even be in this place to create this space. and the personal transformation that we're doing and going through, and is what we hope to share with people. I mean, it's easy to look on Instagram and see, oh, we live on the beach, we walk here and everything that. But someone asked me a couple of days ago, what do you do to get here? What do you do to live here? And the first thing out of my mouth was sacrifice. I mean, if it was easy like that, everyone would do it, and it's not. And we are making sacrifices personally. We're going personally and doing that work and looking and crying and snotting over each other and all that, and becoming who we are and expressing who we are. And how much is that worth to you? 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 10,000. How much is it worth to you to be more of who you are and to be all that you can be, and in a real way, whatever that means for you? And for me, that's priceless. And any opportunity to be able to live in a way that, like, to have freedom, to be able to wake up and do what I want, when I want, with whoever I want. For me, that's the kind of freedom that I've worked for and I continue to work for. And I believe that's the opportunity that each one of us has, for whatever that means for you, for Maya, for me, and whoever joins us, whoever doesn't join us. That's what I want for people, is to have that same freedom. And I think if everybody had that freedom, there'd be less of all that other, I'm not going to be, fighting. Who's got time to fight when you're living free and, happy and blissful and in grace and gratitude?
Thank you. Thank you both for the work that you're doing in the world. Thank you for sharing with WeDeepen, supporting the network, believing in the network, being patient with the network as we all get to build this together. And I personally look forward to the day that I get to come and immerse myself in 8 days with the two of you and see your creation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been an honor.
And thank you, everyone, too, who is listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please like it, subscribe, share it with a friend. Also, come join on the Chakra Healing Jungle Retreats. This specific retreat is happening March 13th through the 20th of 2022. And the plan after this retreat is complete, the next one will be announced. So you'll have an opportunity to join it in the future if you happen to be listening to this podcast at a later date. You can use the promo code WeDeepen for a special pricing of the retreat. And also, if you do want to talk further about it before you make a financial commitment like this to jump on, I mean, you could be one of those people that are like, yes, I'm all in, sign me up, here goes. But if you need to have a conversation about it, reach out to us. I'll put you in touch with Maya or with Michael, and you can dive into all your questions that you have. And also there's a bunch of other experiences at WeDeepen.com/calendar. And the idea is to feel community, not just like in 8 days or in 7 days. It's like a constant life experience. Like, go meet. There's so many interesting people out there. Have to take their journey through, experience all the modalities. I almost think sometimes, as WeDeepen.com, it's like I'm building the class pass for spirituality to some extent through human connection. And so instead of just one leader or one modality or one location, you actually get to adventure into a whole new world. Choose your own adventure. So thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, enjoy. Bye.